Hello, Purdue fans. It's great to be with you again. This is Pastor Brian trying to pass on some information about the Boilermakers and what I saw from the men's basketball team this last week. I was kind of heartbroken just like the rest of you back in the tournament last year, and I kind of just threw everything away. I can't even tell you who won the championship last year. That's pretty bad, and that's how much I got away from it. But getting into a new season, we just had an exhibition game. The guys played great. Yes, the score. Arkansas was 81 and Purdue was 77. But generally speaking, it was a hard-fought game, and there were a lot of different things going on there. It's good to see some of the guys playing better. Some seemed like they were maybe about where they should be. But generally speaking, the team was pretty solid throughout this. I don't care what the outcome was. Remember, an exhibition game is what it was. You also have to remember it was a hostile environment, and you are going to get that every single game this year. There is not going to be a difference for that. It looks like what you'll be seeing basically is you'll get the best from each team, and you will get one of those things where it's the national championship to them. You remember how Arkansas was so excited? You look at all their news. They beat Purdue. They're going to jump into the top 20, all this kind of stuff. Well, for them, it was like winning the national championship. For Purdue, it was just a tune-up to see what goes right, what goes wrong, and how they're going to try to fix those things. So get used to that. Every single game you're going to get the opponent's best from them as we go through the season. Now, every stat, though, throughout this game pretty much went towards Arkansas. Every stat but one, of course, rebounding. Purdue was outdone in every way you could think of, yet they had the lead by 3 points with less than a minute left in the game. It went to overtime. They ended up losing, but the point is they lost in every category except one, and they still were leading the game late. When we start to look at it, they did not shoot the ball well in the first half. Things were kind of rough, sketchy. You might expect that the first game of the season. In the second half, things tightened up. They started scoring some points. They started doing much better. And so the second half was much better. But the other problem, and everybody keeps talking about it, is the 20 turnovers. Okay, 20 turnovers. We're going to have problems. You're going to see that all season. Seems like Purdue's the only team in the country everybody presses every single week and every single time they do that. Well, part of that is because you're one of the best teams in the country. You're rated number 3. You were number 1 last year. These teams, they figure if they can just get a couple extra possessions, they're going to be able to get a chance to win the game and at least stay in it. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. 20 turnovers. Stop thinking about it. It's going to be down. There's going to be games that are going to be under 10. There are going to be games that are going to be over 10, but they're probably going to average around 10 to 12. They generally get through the press a lot better than people think they do. It's just one of those things. Now back to the shooting. 39% was the total for the entire team. That's threes, twos, everything right there. Where Arkansas shot 50%. That's an 11% difference, and you can see they were still pretty much in the game and had the lead at that point. Free throws were also awful. They missed 7 of them in regulation. You'd make one of those free throws and the game's over. Shot like 65, 68%. That's awful. Those will lose you games also during the season if you're not watching out for some of those things. How about Zach Edey? Zach Edey only played 24 minutes in the game. So you're talking, 45 minutes? He only played 24. There were foul problems. Of course, you also started seeing things like you're always going to see with Zach Edey. He was manhandled, pushed around. I saw one video where he got pushed 3 times. Then he puts his arm up. The guy kind of falls back. And they call the foul on Edey. Here's the thing. That's exactly what happened last year. They're going to manhandle him again this year, and they're going to try to do the same things. So expect that to happen. He's still going to go to the free throw line a lot, but he's still going to be manhandled pretty bad, and you guys better get used to it because that's exactly what we're going to see throughout the entire season. Now, of the losses last year, I started to point this out. I probably pointed it out on my last podcast last year or back in the when the season was ending last year. They had 10 games roughly in the season where they shot less than 30% from the three-point range. And, of course, they lost 5 of those 10 games. All the rest of the games, they pretty much shot above 30%. You focus on those 10 games, it's still only 1 out of every 3. Every team's going to react like that, and when you shoot like that, you're going to lose some games. If you remember, there was a game they went 2 for their first 22, and they hit the last 2 to go 4 for 24. But you can't shoot 18% anywhere and win a game, and sure enough, they lost that game towards the end of the season last year. There was even a stretch in this last game where they missed 13 in a row. But I saw a lot of good highlights of guys making great shots, getting wide open again just like last year. Let's just keep massaging this thing. They're going to start making those shots as the season goes on, and things will start to pick up. That's for sure. expect to see. Here's what I can see. I look at some of the stats over here. You know, you can see Trey Kaufman-Renn. I think he's going to be in there a lot with Zach Edey. That looks like a formidable foe. You kind of mix in some of the other guys. You got Braden Smith running the floor. Lawyer's in there. Lance Jones kind of mixes in at times. Mason Gillis, man, the MG midget, not so much. He's a tall guy, but man, this guy runs through things. So the Mason jar is going pretty good there. Ethan Morton still hustling as hard as he can. Guys, you can't expect a little bit more of that. Everybody's got what they've got, but he's hustling hard. He looks a little more fit even this year, a little stronger. Things could be better for him, although I really see his playing time maybe cut just a little bit this year as other guys push themselves to the front and to the top of the pack. How about Caleb Furst? Caleb Furst is a guy we counted on last year. You're going to count on him again this year. Yeah, didn't have a great game, but generally speaking, you know what you're going to get from him. Miles Colvin's the new guy in the mix, and he looks very athletic. If you watch some of his videos from the summer when he was playing ball, he looked excited to get on the floor and move towards it. The problem was he didn't play as much as some of the other guys. That's to be expected. At Purdue, I expect maybe by the end of the season, he may be right into the lineup, or he's going to be getting at least 20 minutes as he fills in for other guys. Brian Waddell, you're going to get some stuff out of him at times. Some of the other guys, you know, it's going to be a mixture. I think this next exhibition game tomorrow, which is Wednesday, I think November 1st, you're going to see a little bit of everybody and less of the starters. So yes, the starters are going to play. They're going to play hard, but I've got a feeling Painter's going to pull them out and start to see a lot of different routines, different ways to run it. Try TKR there at the lead with some of the other guys on the side. Some of the big men coming in. Miles may run the floor for a while as one of the wings and try to do some scoring as we get into these exhibition games. So expect a lot of different lineups and a lot of different looks to see how guys work their way into the lineup. Yes, it's a plethora of competition and talent, but the problem is you can't get all the guys minutes. We've always said that in many places. You've probably seen it and talked about it. But generally speaking, I'm looking at some of these stats here, and it's just 34.5% shooting in the first half. That was awful. 45% in the second half, which gave you that total basically somewhere right around 39%. 38.8 entire game for that. And three-point shooting was much, much less. Some of the guys who did do great, hey, look at Braden Smith. Yeah, he was 3 for 10, but he had all of his free throws. He ended up scoring 12 points. Fletch had 15 on his own. He shot 6 for 13 and 2 for 6 from three-pointers, so he was good. Zach was as normal. He shot 50%, and he hit 7 out of 8 free throws for 15, and he really only played 24 minutes. The big hitters there was Braden, of course. Smitty, he had 36 minutes in. Fletch had about 32, and it looks like Lance Jones got 26 minutes along with Zach Edey at 24, so they mixed it up a little bit. The other heavy hitters, Ethan Morton had 20. Of course, Mason Gillis had 30. And he shot 50%, 5 from 10 for the field. So things were looking good there. So lots of great positive things. But Arkansas took it as if it was the national championship and they had just won that. You should see some of the highlights that they talk about on some of their blogs and their vlogs, what you see on YouTube. And they thought they just took everything away from Purdue and they were the greatest team in the world. Now, they are very athletic. They're great, but they had home court advantage. The place was stocked, man. It was like a Big Ten game there with lots of noise. Everything was going on great. But yet the boys still played solid. The men were there. They were solid. These guys, they're going to step up this year. If you think that this team is not going to go something like 2 to 5 losses the entire season, that's all they're going to do, you're crazy if you think it's going to be worse than that. Because these boys are going to have a chip on their shoulders. All your freshmen have moved up to sophomores. That's the biggest jump, they always say, in college basketball. So expect a lot from Smitty, from Fletch. You're going to get some of these guys. Mason Gillis, the Mason jar right there, is going to start jarring some shots here and there. You know that's going to happen. I put out a nice little short last year showing all of his three-pointers in that one game. And, of course, you're always going to get stuff from the National Player of the Year. Don't be surprised if Zach Edey scores the exact same amount of points or maybe slight more, maybe gets a few more rebounds. I believe his assists are going to go way up this year, and he still doesn't win National Player of the Year, basically because they don't like to do that back-to-back if they don't have to. So don't be surprised if he's around those numbers. I think his assists will go up, but he doesn't win because they'll focus on somebody else. Either way, I think Zach wants to win the national championship, and so does everybody else. We're on board with it. I'm excited about this team. I don't care what happens. I'm going to look at the focus as we get into March and April. That's where we want to play some good ball. We're working all the way through the season. And like I said, I don't see more than 2 to about 5 losses from this team. They'll have like 10 really tough games, and they'll win at least 5 of those, probably more like 7. So that's the way I'm looking at it as the season goes on. Don't get worried about the losses. They're going to come here or there, but generally speaking, watch to see how they play and how they flow, and if they're starting to hit some of those 3-pointers to take some of the stress off the 3 and 4 guys covering Zach Edey at a time. Well, that's it for right now. The next exhibition game is tomorrow night. Let's get excited about it. The season starts just a week or so away, and those games are for real. That's it from here. Thanks for watching Burden on Society.